What would you do if your entire nation was living in fear, and God chose you to lead them to freedom? This is the story of Deborah, a woman whose courage changed the destiny of a nation. She was not just any woman. She was a prophetess, a judge, and a fearless leader, raised by God in a time of crisis. Israel was suffering under the heavy hand of King Jabin of Canaan. His commander, Sisera, ruled with an iron fist and commanded 900 chariots fitted with iron. For 20 long years, he cruelly oppressed Israel. The roads were empty. Villages were abandoned. Farmers were afraid to work their fields. Warriors were few, and fear filled the land. But under the shade of a palm tree, between Ramah and Bethel, sat a woman named Deborah. Day after day, people came to her to settle disputes, and seek wisdom. She listened carefully, not just to their cries, but also to the voice of God. Deborah was unlike anyone else in her generation. She had the heart of a shepherd, the wisdom of a judge, and the boldness of a warrior. While others saw despair, she saw hope, because she trusted the God of Israel. And one day, God gave her a message. A command that would shake the nation, and start a journey toward freedom. Deborah's life was not ordinary. She sat under the palm of Deborah, a special place where people gathered to seek her counsel. Men, women, and leaders of Israel traveled from far and near to hear her judgments. She was fair, wise, and deeply connected to God. Every decision she made reflected the will of the Lord, and because of this, the people trusted her completely. In a time when women were rarely seen in positions of authority, Deborah stood tall as God's chosen judge. She was not a queen with soldiers at her command. She was not a warrior with weapons in her hands. Instead, her strength came from prayer, prophecy, and obedience to God's voice. Each day, Deborah saw the pain of her people. She listened to their stories of loss, homes burned, families scattered, crops stolen by Sisera's men. She saw mothers weep, and fathers hang their heads in shame because they could not protect their children. Her heart was heavy, but she refused to give in to fear. Deborah knew that Israel's pain was not the end of their story. God was preparing to move, and she was ready to hear his command. One morning, as the sun rose over the hills of Ephraim, Deborah received a word from the Lord. It was clear, powerful, and urgent. God had chosen the man who would lead Israel's army, and begin the deliverance they had prayed for. The nation of Israel had reached its breaking point. For 2 decades, King Jabin's oppression had crushed their spirit. Sisera, his commander, was feared everywhere. His army's 900 iron chariots thundered across the land, leaving destruction in their wake. Farmers abandoned their plows. Travelers hid in fear. Warriors laid down their weapons. Israel had become a nation that barely dared to breathe. But when pain reaches its peak, it often drives people back to God. The cries of the Israelites rose like incense to heaven. They remembered the God who had rescued their ancestors from Egypt, and parted the Red Sea. They remembered the God who had brought them into the promised land. And they cried out with one voice, "Lord, deliver us." God heard them. He always does. And his answer came through Deborah. She was not a soldier. Not a general. Not a king. But she was a vessel, willing to listen, and obey. The word of the Lord came to her with power. The time for deliverance had come. God had chosen a man named Barak to lead the charge against Sisera. This would not be a small skirmish. It would be the battle that determined the future of Israel. Deborah knew it was time to act. The nation was desperate. Their cries had been answered. A plan from heaven was about to be set in motion. Without delay, Deborah sent for Barak, the son of Abinoam, from the town of Kadesh in Naphtali. Barak was a warrior, known for his strength and courage, but even he had been silent during these long years of oppression. When he arrived, Deborah delivered the word of the Lord with authority. "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, commands," she said. "Take with you 10,000 men of Naphtali and Zebulun, and lead them up to Mount Tabor. The Lord will draw Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, with his chariots and his troops, to the Kishon River, and give him into your hands." Barak listened carefully. The command was clear, but the challenge was great. Sisera's army was well-trained, well-armed, and terrifying. To face him with farmers and villagers must have seemed impossible. Yet this was not Deborah's plan, it was God's. Barak's heart pounded. This was his moment of decision. Would he obey God's call? Or let fear rule him like it had ruled the nation for years? Deborah's eyes did not waver. She waited for his response. The fate of Israel depended on what he would say next. At last, Barak spoke, his voice steady but cautious. "If you go with me." "I will go," he said. "But if you do not go with me." "I will not go." Deborah's answer would seal the direction of Israel's destiny. Barak's words hung in the air. He was willing to obey, but not without Deborah by his side. He knew her presence meant God's presence. He needed her faith, her courage, and her prophetic voice to guide him through the coming storm. Deborah did not hesitate. "Very well," she replied. "I will surely go with you." Her voice was steady, but then she added a prophecy that shifted everything. "But because of the course you are taking, the honor will not be yours. For the Lord will deliver Sisera into the hands of a woman." Her words were not meant to shame Barak, but to reveal what God was about to do. Victory would come, but God himself would decide who received the honor. Barak agreed. He rose to his feet, courage igniting within him. Together, they summoned the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali. Messengers were sent out, calling men to gather for battle. Across the land, word spread that Deborah the prophetess, and Barak the warrior, were calling Israel to rise. 10,000 men responded. They left their homes, their fields, and their fears behind. Meanwhile, Sisera heard of the gathering army. He immediately mobilized his forces, 900 iron chariots, and countless soldiers. The ground shook as his army prepared for war. The stage was set. Two armies were about to meet. The God of Israel was about to show his power in a way no one could deny. The call to arms spread like wildfire. From every hill and valley, men of Zebulun and Naphtali gathered under Barak's command. Soon, 10,000 warriors stood ready. They were not trained soldiers, but their hearts were burning with courage. They knew this battle was not just theirs, it was the Lord's. Deborah stood among them, her presence a steady reminder that God was with Israel. She encouraged them with words of faith. "The Lord has gone ahead of you," she said. "Do not fear the chariots. Do not fear Sisera. Today you will see the salvation of the Lord." Meanwhile, Sisera gathered his forces at Harosheth Hagoyim. The sound of 900 iron chariots rumbled across the plains, striking terror into anyone who heard it. His army was vast, well-trained, fully armed. By human standards, the battle was already decided. But this was not a battle fought by human strength. This was God's war. Barak led his men up Mount Tabor, positioning them just as God had commanded. From that high place, they could see the enemy's approach. The sky was heavy, the air was charged, as if the heavens themselves were waiting. Deborah watched quietly, listening for the voice of God. The moment of destiny was near. The battle that would decide the future of Israel was about to begin. And all of heaven was ready to move. Barak's army stood at Mount Tabor, staring down Sisera's terrifying chariots. The battle was moments away. Would Israel rise to victory, or be crushed again under Jabin's rule? Don't miss part 2, where the battle begins, and an unexpected twist will decide the fate of a nation.